All right, get ready, because we are diving deep into something pretty huge today, AI music tech. And we're going to be talking about what it means for Africa's music scene, which is already blowing up, by the way.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating topic. There's so much potential. But there's also some big questions about who benefits from all of this new technology.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to try to unpack today. So the starting point for this deep dive, it's a LinkedIn article, really caught my eye. It's called "The AI Music Revolution Africa Cannot Afford to Miss a $20 B Opportunity." And it was published on November 14th, 2024 by Willy Seyama. He's the founder and CEO of Initiate, which is a marketing productivity agency. And he really seems to understand where tech and creativity, where they come together.
Yeah, and what makes this so interesting is that it's not just about the music, it's about the economics, it's about cultural preservation. And it's really about the future of how we create, as a global society.
Absolutely. So to kick things off, let's start with a number that'll kind of blow your mind. In 2023, Afrobeats alone pulled in a ridiculous 7.1 billion streams on Spotify. And keep in mind, that's just one platform. So when you factor in all the other streaming services, especially those that are really popular across Africa, I mean, we're talking about a cultural force that's already huge.
Right, it's massive. And I think that 7.1 billion, that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, Gives us a little glimpse into just how big the global appetite is for African music. And this isn't just some, passing trend or anything. We're seeing it reflected in international collaborations, major artists sampling Afrobeats, and, artists like Tyla are breaking into the U.S. charts with her blend of Amapiano and pop.
Yeah, and that's huge. It's proof that African music is really breaking through in a major way.
Yeah.
But, the big question is, can African artists, innovators, can they capitalize on the AI music revolution that's coming? Because, and here's another number to think about, Goldman Sachs is predicting that the AI music market, it's going to reach $20.1 billion.
By 2030.
Wow. That's an insane amount of money, especially when you compare it to the broader AI boom that we're seeing right now. Think about OpenAI. Their valuation has basically doubled in the last year just because of all this interest in development in AI. So, naturally, the question is, who's going to benefit from this $20 billion opportunity?
Yeah, and that's where things get a little tricky. The article points out that a lot of the popular AI music tools, the ones we see all the time, like Udio and Suno, they're basically ignoring African genres. It's like they're missing out on a whole continent of amazing music. All this diversity. You won't even find Afrobeats or Amapiano as options on those platforms. Yeah, it's a major oversight, especially when you think about how important Africa's music industry already is. It employs tons of people. So, just imagine how much potential there is for growth and innovation if African musicians had access to AI tools that were made specifically for their musical tradition.
Right. And that's exactly what the article is arguing for. Africa needs its own AI music generators. And they lay out a really compelling case focusing on three main areas: market potential, cultural preservation, and the economic impact. So let's break each of those down, starting with market potential. Africa's music streaming revenue is already growing like crazy. It's projected to hit $4.2 billion by 2025.
Wow. And it's not just about the existing market either. Think about the demographics. Over 60% of Africa's population is under 25. And that generation, they're super tech savvy and they're really into music. So you've got a massive potential user base right there.
Yeah, and we can't forget that Africa is leading the way when it comes to mobile-first technology. Solutions that are designed primarily for mobile devices. And this is really crucial for AI music tools. Right. Because so many people across the continent rely on their phones.
Right, exactly. It's like the perfect mix of factors, creating this incredible opportunity for AI music to just take off. But, it's not just about the economic potential. It's about preserving and celebrating Africa's cultural heritage, too.
For sure. And that's where that second key area comes in, cultural preservation. We've talked about how those popular AI music tools are kind of overlooking African genres. And, that ties into a bigger problem with representation in AI systems in general.
Right, exactly. Think about it this way. AI systems, they learn from the data that they're given. So if that data doesn't include the unique characteristics of African music, the rhythms, the scales, the instruments, the languages, then the AI won't be able to really generate or understand those nuances. It's like, you're trying to teach someone Swahili, but you're only giving them textbooks in English.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
So basically, it's a recipe for bias, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately a missed opportunity for creative expression.
Mhm.
So the article argues that developing these AI music generators specifically for Africa, it can actually help preserve and promote the continent's musical heritage.
Exactly. It's like you're building a digital archive that captures the essence of those traditions,
Yeah.
and it makes them accessible to future generations. Like, imagine an AI that can generate music in a specific regional style, incorporating local instruments and vocal techniques. I mean, that would be such a powerful tool for cultural education.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And of course, we can't forget about that third key area, the economic impact. The article mentions that the African music industry, it already employs something like 2 million people. So imagine the ripple effect of a really thriving AI music scene.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just about jobs in the music industry itself either. Think about the potential for tech startups, software developers, sound engineers, content creators, all the supporting industries that would benefit.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And get this, the African Development Bank, they estimate that every dollar that's invested in African creative industries generates $2.70 in economic output. That's huge.
Wow, that's a powerful stat. It shows just how much potential there is for a positive impact. It's about creating a whole new ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship, and it's all driven by African talent.
Yeah, exactly. So we've talked about the need for Africa's own AI music generators
Yeah.
and how the market potential is there, the cultural implications are huge, and the economic benefits are undeniable.
Hmm.
But like with any new technology, there's some pretty big challenges to overcome.
Right, and those challenges, they're a reflection of the bigger issues facing AI adoption in Africa, especially what we call the digital divide. Access to technology, resources, training, all of those things can really slow down progress.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into those challenges a little bit more. First, you've got limited access to AI development tools. The article cites this 2024 GitHub survey that found that only 13% of African developers have access to these crucial resources. And that's a really stark contrast to other parts of the world where access is much more common.
Right, and that lack of access creates a huge barrier for African developers who want to, get into AI. It's like trying to build a house without the tools and materials you need.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about access to tools either. There's also very little research that's focused on African music. Like less than 5% of global AI research papers are actually dedicated to this area, according to the Stanford AI Index.
Wow, that's really surprising. I mean, that means we're only scratching the surface when it comes to, what AI can do with African music. We need more researchers exploring these musical traditions and developing AI models that can really understand how complex they are.
Yeah, and then there's the last challenge, which is maybe the most important one, the lack of training data specifically for African musical genres and instruments. AI systems are only as good as the data that they're trained on, right? So if they don't have access to diverse and representative data sets of African music, they just won't be able to generate or understand it accurately.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, imagine you're trying to teach an AI to compose Afro beats, but you're only giving it classical music. I mean, the results wouldn't be very authentic.
Not at all. So we've got these, pretty significant challenges, the digital divide, limited research, and a lack of data. But it's important to remember that these challenges, they're not impossible to overcome. There are some really inspiring examples out there that show how Africa can overcome these obstacles and really carve out its own path in this AI music revolution.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are some insanely talented developers, entrepreneurs, and artists across Africa who are already doing incredible things.
Yeah, and that's what makes me so excited about this whole topic. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the local success stories that are paving the way for a brighter future for AI music in Africa.
Okay, yeah. I'm excited to hear about that. There's so much potential waiting to be unlocked. And I think these success stories, they give us some valuable lessons and inspiration for moving forward.
Exactly. So let's start by looking at the rise of local streaming platforms. It's incredible that Africa has created its own, thriving streaming platforms like Boomplay and Dundo and Makito.
Yeah.
It's really encouraging.
Yeah, it proves that these homegrown solutions, they can not only survive, but they can actually thrive in a really competitive market. And I think these platforms, they understand the African music market in a way that a lot of global platforms just don't.
Yeah, they've really tailored their platforms to local tastes and to the economic realities in Africa, offering things like flexible payment options and data-friendly streaming plans, which is something that A lot of international companies kind of miss when they try to break into the African market.
Totally. And it's not just about survival either. I mean, 3 out of the top 5 music streaming platforms in Africa are locally created. That's pretty amazing.
Right.
Especially when you consider, the competition they're up against from Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah, exactly. It really shows how much entrepreneurial spirit and innovation is happening in Africa's tech scene.
Yeah.
It's a sign that, with the right support and resources, they can achieve that same kind of success in the AI music space.
Right. Like, if local platforms can do so well with streaming, why not with AI music creation? There's definitely a model for success here. Absolutely. And it's not just limited to music either. Like, think about M-Pesa, that mobile money platform that totally changed financial transactions in Kenya, and then it spread across Africa. It's a perfect example of how a homegrown solution can address local needs and then, gain global recognition.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. M-Pesa proves that African innovation can really have a global impact. It's about identifying a need, developing a solution that works in that specific context, and then scaling it up to reach a bigger audience. And I think that same principle can totally apply to AI music.
Yeah, for sure. It's about tapping into that same entrepreneurial energy, that same drive to solve problems and create new opportunities. We need to encourage and support the development of AI music tools that are made by Africans for African musicians.
Absolutely. So we've got these inspiring examples of success. But, we also have to be realistic about the challenges. How do we bridge that digital divide and make sure that African developers have what they need to compete in the AI music space?
Well, it's a complex problem, and it needs a collaborative approach. Governments, tech companies, investors, educational institutions, they all have a role to play. We need to build an ecosystem that really supports innovation and gives African developers a chance to succeed.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about creating the right environment for talent to grow.
Exactly. Investing in infrastructure is super important. Improving internet connectivity, giving people access to affordable computing resources, and setting up training programs that teach developers the skills they need to build, like cutting-edge AI music tools.
Right. And speaking of training, that brings us to the second challenge, the lack of research on African music. How do we encourage more researchers to really dive into this area and develop AI models that truly get the nuances of African musical traditions?
Well, I think it's about providing incentives and creating opportunities, funding research grants, setting up dedicated research centers, partnering with international institutions. All of those things can help build interest and expertise in this field.
And it's not just about, academic research. It's about supporting practical applications, too. We need to encourage collaborations between researchers, developers, and musicians so that those academic insights can actually be turned into tools that artists can use.
Yeah, that's a great point. Imagine research labs working directly with musicians to create AI algorithms that can generate new rhythms based on traditional drumming patterns, or tools that can analyze vocal techniques and create harmonies that fit those styles.
Oh, that'd be amazing. It's about connecting theory and practice, making sure that the research actually benefits the music industry.
Exactly. And finally, we need to tackle the most fundamental challenge, the lack of data. We need to build really strong and diverse data sets of African music if we want to train these AI systems properly. And this is where collaboration becomes even more important.
Right, like bringing together local streaming platforms, music schools, cultural institutions, and individual artists to build this massive digital library of African music that can be used for AI training.
Exactly. Imagine a digital library that includes everything, from traditional folk songs to contemporary hip-hop, representing all the different languages, instruments, and musical styles across the continent.
Wow, that would have been incredible. Not just for AI development, but for anyone who wants to explore and learn about African music. It would be a real testament to, to the richness and diversity of Africa's cultural heritage.
It's a vision worth working towards, and I think it's definitely achievable with the right commitment and collaboration. Now, remember our earlier conversation about Tyla and her, her success in the U.S.?
Yeah, her music is so catchy, that blend of Amapiano and pop.
Yeah.
But she's actually gotten some criticism. Some people tried to label her as just an Afrobeats artist. And completely miss the unique South African sound that she brings.
Right, exactly. It just goes to show that even humans have trouble recognizing all the nuances within African music, which is why it's so important to develop AI music tools that can accurately represent and generate, the full range of African sounds, not just these broad categories.
Yeah, totally. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Yeah. It just doesn't work. We need AI tools that are as diverse and nuanced as the music itself.
Exactly. And her story also highlights how important it is to support young African artists
Yeah,
who are pushing boundaries and challenging expectations. We need to create a space where talent like hers can thrive, both in Africa and on the global stage.
absolutely. We need to give artists the power to tell their stories in their own way without being forced into these predefined boxes.
Yeah.
So circling back to the article, what are some concrete steps that,
Yep.
that can be taken to make sure Africa doesn't miss out on this whole AI music revolution?
Well, the article lays out a three-pronged approach.
Yep.
Which we've kind of touched on already, but it's worth getting into the specifics a bit. First, we need to invest in building those strong and diverse data sets of African music that we talked about.
Right, collaborating with streaming platforms, music schools, and cultural institutions to create that huge digital library of sounds.
Yeah.
But how do we make sure that those data sets are created ethically and that artists aren't being exploited?
That's a really important question. We need to make sure that artists are paid fairly for their contributions and that their intellectual property rights are protected. Transparency and fair compensation models are key.
Absolutely. It's about creating a system that benefits everyone, not just the tech companies. What about the second part of the approach? Skills development. What does that look like in practice?
Well, it's about giving African developers and musicians the knowledge and skills to succeed in this new era of AI music. Like, imagine coding boot camps that teach people how to build AI music apps using African instruments and scales.
Oh, that would be cool. Or workshops that show musicians how to use AI tools in their creative process, like to generate new melodies, explore different sounds, or even collaborate with artists from other parts of Africa.
Exactly. We need to make these technologies accessible and easy to understand. Not everyone needs to become an AI expert, but everyone should have the opportunity to learn how to use these tools creatively.
Yeah, it's about building a culture of experimentation and innovation, encouraging people to push boundaries and see what's possible. And finally, what about that third part, cultural integration? How do we make sure that these AI music tools are not just technologically advanced, but also culturally sensitive?
Well, this is where collaboration between technologists, musicians, and cultural experts becomes really crucial. We need to design AI systems that have a deep understanding of African musical traditions and that incorporate indigenous knowledge and aesthetics.
So not just creating AI that copies Western music, but AI that can truly understand and create, the rhythms, harmonies, and vocal styles that make African music so unique.
Yeah, exactly. Like, imagine an AI that can compose in pentatonic scales, or generate rhythms that are based on traditional drumming patterns, or even create harmonies that use the call and response style of singing.
Wow, that's where things get really interesting. It's about using AI to not just preserve, but to actually evolve African musical traditions and push them in new directions.
Right. It's about embracing the potential of AI to amplify, not erase, the richness and diversity of African music, connecting artists across the continent and sharing their voices with the world.
Yeah, I love that. And, let's bring it back to the listener for a second. If you're a musician in Africa, what can you do to prepare for this future of AI music?
Well, first of all, don't be afraid to experiment. Explore the AI music tools that are already out there, even if they're not specifically made for African music. See how you can adapt them to your own creative process and use them to expand your sound.
And don't let the technology scare you off. There's so many resources available, like online, articles, videos, even online courses and workshops, all about AI and how it's being used in music.
Right. It's like learning any new instrument or software. It takes a little time to get the hang of it, but it's definitely doable if you're, curious and willing to put in the work. And the most important thing is to never lose sight of your own unique voice and vision as an artist. AI tools, they can be really powerful, but they should never replace that human spark that drives creativity.
Exactly. It's about using AI to make your creativity even better, not to let it take over. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to develop the next groundbreaking AI music tool, right? The one that changes everything.
Yeah, imagine that. A future where African artists aren't just using AI music technology, but they're the ones creating it, shaping the tools that will define the sounds of tomorrow.
That's when things get really revolutionary. Instead of just adapting to what's already out there, African innovators can be the leaders, developing AI that reflects their own cultures and musical traditions.
Right, like imagine AI algorithms that can understand the emotions behind African music and create these personalized listening experiences that really resonate with audiences worldwide, or AI-powered platforms that connect African artists directly with fans all over the globe,
Yeah.
breaking down those geographical barriers and making the global music market more accessible.
We're talking about a whole new way of thinking,
Yeah.
right? A future where African music isn't just recognized, but it's celebrated for its innovation and influence.
Absolutely. A future where technology helps to promote cultural expression instead of getting in the way, fostering understanding and appreciation for the unique sounds of Africa.
This whole conversation has been so inspiring. We've talked about the potential of AI music in Africa, the challenges, the incredible success stories, and the steps that we can take to make this amazing opportunity a reality.
It really shows that technology can be a force for good, you know? It can empower people and drive positive change. But it's up to us to make sure it's used responsibly and ethically.
And that brings us to our final thought for today. This AI music revolution, it's happening whether we like it or not. It's a wave that's changing the world. And it has the power to completely transform how we create, consume, and experience music.
Yeah, and the question is, will Africa ride that wave and control its own destiny? Or will it get left behind? The talent, the creativity, the entrepreneurial spirit, it's all there.
We've seen it in the success of those local streaming platforms, the rise of artists like Tyla, and all those innovators who are working to close that digital divide. What we need now is the vision, the investment, and the collective will to make it happen.
The $20 billion opportunity is up for grabs, but it's up to all of us to seize it. So I'll leave you with this. What role will you play in making sure that Africa's voice is heard in the future of music?
That's a really good question to think about. It's a call to action for musicians, developers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, anyone who believes in the power of music to connect us, inspire us, and change the world. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into AI music and Africa's potential. We hope you're feeling as excited about the possibilities as we are. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep the music playing.